Alright, today we're moving on to chapter 7, 7.1, applying the Pythagorean theorem. So, theorem 7.1 is the Pythagorean theorem. It says in a right triangle, that's an important part of this statement. It has to be a right triangle to use the Pythagorean theorem. So a lot of people try to use the Pythagorean theorem when it wasn't a right triangle. But in a right triangle, the square of the length of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares of the lengths of the legs. All of you have learned the Pythagorean theorem at some point already. So it's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. A and b have to be your legs. So if there's the right angle, then a and b have to be attached to the right angle. C is your longest side, or your hypotenuse. Right? We've all learned that before. This should be an easy section. If we have 6 and 8, these are our legs of the triangle. You do 6 squared plus 8 squared equals x squared. 6 squared is 36. 8 squared is 64. It's equal to x squared. So you get 100 equals x squared. We take the square root of both sides. Square root of 100 is 10, so you get 10 equals x. Not too bad. If we continue using more examples like this, here we have 3, x, and 5. So we can do 3 squared plus our other leg is x squared equals 5 squared. 3 squared is 9. So it's 9 plus x squared equals 25. Subtract the 9 over. Get x squared equals 16. Take the square root of both sides. You get x equals 4. This one is a right triangle. We have 4 squared plus 6 squared equals x squared. It gives you 16 plus 36 equals x squared. It's going to give you 52 equals x squared. Take the square root of both sides. Now, 52 is not a perfect root, so we would just approximate. So you're just going to put the square root of 52 in your calculator. Get 7.2. It's pretty easy. Now we have a word problem. 16-foot ladder rests against the side of the house. The base of the ladder is 4 feet away. Approximately how high above the ground is the top of the ladder? So now we're measuring the building height. So if the ladder is 16 foot, that's your hypotenuse. 16 squared equals 4 squared plus x squared. Then 16 squared, everyone knows that's 256. equals 16 plus x squared. Subtract the 16 over, you get 240 equals x squared. And you just take the square root of both sides. The square root of 240 is about 15.5. So your building would be 15.5 feet high. Find the area of the isosceles triangle with side lengths 10 meters, 13 meters, and 13 meters. So if it's isosceles, that would be 13 and 13, and your bottom would be 10, right? So then this line here creates the right triangle, which means this piece is 5. If you remember, for finding the area of a triangle, it's 1/2 base times height, right? And so we need to find what the height is. That's our x. So we do 5 squared. So before we can find the area, we have to find that height. So it's 5 squared plus x squared equals 13 squared. And me being a genius, I know this is 12. We'll work it out anyways. 25 plus x squared equals 169. Subtract the 25, get x squared equals 144. Take the square root, and you get x equals 12. So your height is 12. Now to find the area, is area equals 1/2 base, which was 10, times the height, which is 12. 10 times 12 is 120. Half of that is 60. And so this would be 60 meters squared. So here's 2 more examples. Find the area of the triangle. So we have 30 foot across the bottom, but that's the whole bottom. So half of that would be 15. So then we do 15 squared plus x squared equals 18 squared. So we give us 225 plus x squared equals 324. I'll subtract 225 over, get x squared equals 99. And then you take the square root. So you give you about 9.9. So then that's 9.9 there. And then you do area equals 1/2 of the base, which is 30, times the height, which is 9.9. Gives you 148.5. So we'll give you area equals 148.5 square feet, or feet squared. Here this base is 20. Divide it in half, you get 10. Still got to find the height x. So it gives us 10 squared plus x squared equals 26 squared. So 26 squared is 676. Ten squared is 100. Gives you 100 plus x squared equals 676. Subtract 100, you get x squared equals 576. Square root of both sides. You get x equals 24. So that's 24. Then your area is 1/2 base, which is 20, times the height, which is 24. Here's how I always do this. I'll take half of 20. That way I get my 1/2 out of the way. That's just 10 times 24, which is 240. Just 240 meters squared. Alright, a 5-foot board rests under a doorknob, and the base of the door is 3.5 feet away from the bottom of the door. Approximately how high above the ground is the doorknob? So basically you have to just draw this out. So we got this 5-foot board, like that. Base of the board is 3.5 feet away from the door, like that. We just got to find out how long or how high the door is, right? So this is 3.5. This is 5, and we don't know what that is. Now it forms a right triangle. So it's just 3.5 squared plus x squared equals 5 squared. Then 3.5 squared is 12.25. 5 squared is obviously 25. Subtract that, you get x squared equals 12.75. And then just take the square root of both sides. You get about x equals about 3.6 feet. They're all pretty straightforward. Okay, here's an important thing to know. These are called Pythagorean triples. And so you have 4 basic Pythagorean triples. You have the 3, 4, 5, 5, 12, 13, 8, 15, 17, and 7, 24, 25. Then you have multiples of those triples. 6, 8, 10. So we just took 3 times 2, 4 times 2, 5 times 2, 3 times 3, 4 times 3, 5 times 3. So we have multiples of those triples as well. So like back on one of these examples, here. I remember saying like, oh, I'm a genius. It's not me being a genius. That's a 5, 12, 13 triangle. So as soon as I see that my hypotenuse is 13 and my base is 5, just by remembering the common Pythagorean triple, I knew that this height had to be 12. All just because it was a 5, 12, 13 triangle. So if you remember these common triples, it makes it so that you don't actually have to use the Pythagorean theorem. Looking at this example, I have 30, 40, that's going to be 50. This is a 3, 4, 5 triangle. Now it's just to multiply by 10. Now, if I don't memorize the Pythagorean triples or I don't want to write them down in my notebook, I mean, it doesn't make sense to not write them down, but if you're too lazy to write them down in your notebook, then you can still use the Pythagorean theorem. 30 squared plus 40 squared equals x squared. It's going to give you 900 plus 1,600 equals x squared. That gives you 2,500 equals x squared. You take the square root of both sides. Gives you x equals 50. Still come up with the right answer. It's just a lot more work than just knowing it. So do your best to try to memorize those, or write them in your notebook at the very least. Alright, that's the end. Practice day is on its way. That's a nice little rhyme.